Hey, it's Aaron, and today I'm at the Turpin Meadows Ranch, but the name's spelled wrong, so I can't claim any ownership. Anyway, we're out here riding Outlander EVs. This is Can-Am's new machine. It's fully electric. It's freaking awesome.
All right, so that was me sitting on the Can-Am Outlander Electric. I rode it for most of a day and a little bit of time out in the Jackson Hole, Wyoming area. Really great rig. So I didn't know what to expect going into this. I've ridden Outlanders before. I've ridden the 850 and 1000R, if you remember that video from, I think it was last year. And I've ridden some Polaris and others. So ATVs are not new to me, but I did not know what to expect with this one. So this, being all electric, I wasn't sure what that was gonna mean for it. What it means is it is a kind of a mid-output vehicle. It's really aiming for working uses. So it's really aiming for farms and ranches and places that are somewhere in the 100 acres and less range. So you're talking about most small farms and landowners. You're not talking about like cattle ranchers with huge swaths of land. You're talking about smaller outfits or a section of a larger property. So it has 47 peak horsepower, which doesn't sound like a lot. Most of the time you're going to be getting about 10 less than that. That doesn't sound like much, but honestly, it's all about torque with these things, not really horsepower. And you don't need speed when you're using it as a work vehicle. This is not a sport vehicle for going out and flying through the desert or something. And even then, chances of you going over 50 miles an hour are actually relatively slim. Unless you're a true racer, you're probably not going that fast very often, if at all. It has 53 pound-feet of peak torque output. The beauty there, though, is even though that number isn't huge compared to like the 1000R, you have that torque all the time, not just when the revs are really high. So you have that torque constantly. And then Can-Am did some smart things with the gearing in this. So basically, the gearbox is a direct drive. So when you're in high, so when you're in your regular for high mode, it's pretty much the motor turning the wheels, not a whole lot of stuff happening in the gearbox with that. When you go to low, so for low on this, then the gearbox adds gearing and ups that torque output. It's a really nice setup, and it allows for reverse without gearing. So the reverse is just you change the polarity on the electric motor, and now it's going backwards. They did put speed limits on that, of course, because otherwise it would be super dangerous. So the speed limit on that, I think, is like 12 kilometers or 12 miles, one of those. It's really well done. So the only problem I have with that is that to switch to reverse, you have to push the button that is the power button. And sometimes it feels like it takes too long. You end up pushing it a bunch of times and then other things happen. So I think that's a little clunky. I would just prefer to have the the physical shifter just have a reverse shift. I think I would like that a whole lot better. But Can-Am was trying to make it a thumb on the fly thing, but that's mostly a gimmick. It's really not going to be that useful. Not in the real world. I could see no real use for it other than hopefully some emergency thing, but at that point you should just be pushing the brakes anyway. Battery pack is 8.9 kilowatt hours. That's about, by the EPA, that's 50 miles of driving range or riding range. Real life, more like 30, because mixed use, where you're going up and down hills, you're going at speed, you're going to low speeds, you're pulling some kind of trailer or load or something like that, you're going to get lower than that. And realistically, about 30 miles is probably your range on that. Now, that doesn't sound like much, but if you sit down and actually think about how much you actually drive your working ATV, not how much fuel you use, how much you actually drive it. You're probably only in the 12 to 15 miles a day range. That's most of the fuel usage in a working ATV is idle time, not drive time. So Can-Am did a lot of research on that, and they found that 16 miles is about where most of the max use happens. So for most users that are using these as a working machine, 16 miles is generally their maximum in terms of the little average range. So there are going to be some people that are going to push all the way to the end, like we did when we did a bunch of trail riding and then came down and did a bunch of work with the machine. And in between that, when we had lunch, I was looking at the mileage, at what was left on the battery, and all that trail riding had used about 30% about a third of the battery, and then the working stuff used roughly another third. We were dragging an arena and pulling some logs and things like that, and then just getting from point A to point B on the ranch that we were on. So I think that number that Can-Am came up with is pretty accurate. Used about 2/3 of the battery, and we were doing a lot of shuttling, which you normally would not be doing with a working vehicle. You would have a couple of tasks, you would go do those tasks. You're not going to be going back and forth for a bunch of other stuff and photo ops and whatever. So I think that even with only 30 miles of range, there's more than enough for most people. Now, you can charge this from 20 to 80% in about an hour, about 50 minutes, and then you can do from 0% to full in about an hour and a half. That sounds like a lot, but it's not actually that much. That's assuming a level 2 charger, which is pretty much the max for this. And it does have thermal management, so it does manage the batteries. So if it's plugged in, it will keep them warm, or it will cool them as needed during charging. Either way, it's taking care of those batteries. It's a really neat, kind of not unique, but really neat tri-valve system. Basically what it does is it circulates fluid either through a heater, or so a heating element, or through a cooling system with a fan, so it's a radiator and fan. Either way, it's working to keep those batteries at the perfect temperature. Very neat setup. If you're familiar with the e-Power Rotax system, it's the same that's on Can-Am's motorcycles and a couple other electric motorcycle and a couple other things, then you're familiar with the drivetrain for this. Now, the real beauty of the Outlander EV is the fact that all of that, with all of this stuff, it only weighs a few kilograms more. I think they said 25 kilograms more than the regular 1000R. So it really doesn't weigh too much more than a regular ATV. It was still right on the same trailer, all of that stuff. You're not going to have to adjust anything for that. And also the price tag. This thing starts at $13,000. That's really dang good for considering how much is in this. So that is super awesome. There's a lot of options and stuff, and Can-Am is debuting a new screen on this. I like the screen a lot, but I think one upgrade that should be offered that isn't is just a small air compressor so that you can blow the screen off easily, and then maybe yourself or your hook it to a helmet or something to keep yourself cool. I think that would be a cool accessory. But speaking of accessories, just like the other Can-Am, the 850 and the 1000R, this one uses almost all of the available accessories from Can-Am. So if you already have a bunch of stuff like the front gearbox or the speakers or the chainsaw holder, the cooler that goes on the back, any of that stuff, it will work on this as well. So body styling has not changed. There's a few details that change, but overall the racks and body and other stuff are not different. The access point on the side where you would normally pull the panel off to get to the engine is now where the charge point is on the left, and on the right it's the same, so that they didn't have to manufacture a bunch of different stuff. And then it's a very cool system. 1,800 pounds, give or take, a little more than that, but 1,800 pounds of towing on this. Comes standard with a 2-inch hitch receiver, and then 360 pounds of cargo capability. So basically the same as the other Can-Am models. So really nicely done. Operating temperatures, people are always going to ask that. -4 degrees Fahrenheit up to 104 degrees Fahrenheit. That's your operating temperatures for it without any serious loss. It will operate at temps under or over that, but you're going to have heating and cooling issues. You're going to have issues, but most of those issues are going to be basically that it's going to lose a bunch of range because of it. Potentially overheat and shut itself down in order to cool off, that kind of stuff. The coolest thing about this overall is the fact that when you're out there riding it, there's no noise. You hear the tires, that's it. There's no CVT rattling to try to, during engine braking and whatever. There's no revs. You're not having a high rev up or down to do things. It just silently does its thing. Dragging the arena, there was just the noise of the grates in the dirt. All that stuff. It's really cool to ride around in nature and to go. If you have horses and stuff, there were horses on this ranch. They were pretty fine with these things. They weren't making a bunch of noise around them. They were perfectly happy. They were more interested in the people that were crowding than they were in the machines themselves. There's no noise to spook them or anything like that. Really cool setup. I really like this, and I think that there's going to be a lot of naysayers, and those naysayers are going to be people that just don't understand it. I don't think that there's any real serious downside to this unless you have a property that has absolutely no way to get electricity into it. And at that point, I'm like, I don't know why you're arguing with me then. Why just don't buy it? But really awesome setup. I really like this thing. I think Can-Am has kind of taken this to the next level, and I really hope this does well. That's the 2026 Can-Am Outlander Electric. This has been Aaron. Talk to you again soon.
See all the dust?
Yeah,